Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Dave Nelson. I'm the CEO of Traction Complete, where we believe that data can be this incredible instruction set for businesses. And so we're on a mission to help reduce the data complexity in Salesforce by building apps on the App Exchange that help do things like automatically link accounts into hierarchies, that match leads to accounts, and then facilitate the signing of the right people, as well as normalize and deduplicate data. And today we're very fortunate to be joined by Jared Robin, the founder of RevGenius and CEO of RevGenius, Jason Hubbard. Jared and Jason, thanks so much for joining. Do you mind introducing yourself, telling us a little about the community?
Yeah, I'm Jared. Started RevGenius about 2.5 years ago. The intention was to create a space for all revenue professionals, sales, marketing, RevOps, CS to go and to be able to go from IC to senior leadership positions. And the reason for it was because there was no open, inclusive, accessible, no or low cost communities available at the time, at least that were on my radar. So that was the starting point. Since it's evolved quite a bit to where we have some other programming, et cetera, and moving to other directions, but really excited about where we're at. We have 30,000 plus members and growing fast.
That's wild. Yeah, that's incredible. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And Jason, you mind doing an intro?
Yep. Jason Hubbard. I'm COO at RevGenius. Met Jared a few years ago, not long after he launched RevGenius, and was one of the early customers that he had there. Spent my career last 15 years, B2B SaaS, variety of roles from, heads of marketing, growth, demand gen, partnerships, including a couple of stints of running my own businesses, agencies, which is how I wound up getting back involved with Jared and RevGenius. They were a client of mine and then came in full-time as CEO a little over a month ago. So it's been a pretty awesome ride. Most recently, I was at a company called Astronomer. We 5x'd revenue in 5 quarters and raised $500 million over just a little over a year there. So it was a fun rocket ship ride, and but fun to be off building something at the early stages again.
So you guys have built this incredible community. I can imagine it's probably evolved over time, where the first couple dozen were, could chat amongst each other and keep up. Now with 30,000, how do you find that people are able to consume that much information, particularly with everyone being so busy?
So I'll start this and Jason will probably finish it. Like we've evolved in how good we are with the folks, but like as we scale, new problems come about. And that's important, right? Like when we optimized for engagement early and we were so engaged, but there's a law of diminishing return, right? People shut off Slack notifications. People started having other Slacks when other communities came up and the attention was split, et cetera. Then you have a time where we thought about going off of Slack and having a platform where we could own and measure more data on our website, right? But the reason why we ended up staying is because there's no better synchronous platform, and trying to move that many people from point A to point B, you're going to lose 80%. And if you only lose 80%, you're doing something right? Like it's a really hard move, and you're changing people's behavior. As a bootstrapped company, not ready to build the next LinkedIn or Clubhouse or anything, like it just didn't make sense.
One of the very first things whenever I started looking at this with Jared that it really came to mind was this isn't so different than a high volume, low touch PLG SaaS motion. So you've got the 3 levers that you need to focus on within that. You've got to acquire net new members, you've got to activate them, get them plugged in, get them to join Slack, get them to start consuming content, having conversations, stuff like that. And then we've got to keep them engaged and retain them. And so it's really no different than overall strategies and things that you need to pay attention to on that side. then North Star metric then becomes weekly active community members. So are they having conversations? Are they registering for events and stuff like that? So that gives us sort of the framework for how do we go about trying to optimize this stuff and everything. Unfortunately, one of the limitations that we've run into is there's not really much in the way of tooling or tech out there that's mature as far as being able to track what people are doing within platforms like Slack. And so best that I've found out there, and I've looked at just about everything, does maybe a third of what I'm trying to do and accomplish within that. And so we're looking at having to go and build an actual solution for that. But we're also already building out some things to really help within that, like building out Guru as a knowledge management platform, where all of this content that we're creating, that's largely ephemeral right now, where if you didn't register for the event, you didn't show up for it, if you weren't there for the conversation, stuff like that, can now live in a place where it's indexed, it's searchable, it's shareable, it's got a tight integration with Slack, and so that we can actually start getting that stuff out there and making it more available. This also creates a lot of really valuable intent signals for us as far as what are people engaged with, what are people interested in, so that as we start getting more sophisticated with this, we can actually start, prompting conversations, connections, start getting the right content out in front of the right people based off of what we've seen them do in the past. So, think like suggestion engines with, Netflix or something like that. And it's, same kind of problem. You've got so much content. So how do you get somebody to not be overwhelmed and actually find the content that's valuable or interesting to them? So same types of problems that we're trying to solve there within, the size of the community, the varied interest, as well as, just the volume of content that we have and that we're generating.
This is exciting though, because what's happened in the last 2 years that hasn't happened before, people are building places of scale on third-party tools. Okay, period. Like if we just distill it down, so you have previously social media networks, Facebook, they're able to tell all the growth gates from acquisition to activation to engagement, retention, because they built the product, right? And they know how to measure stuff. So now you have third-party tools, whether it's forums or Slack or Discord, that's created a product and the ability for us to not have to create products. So theoretically, we could go to market without tech teams. This is like the whole big no-code movement and then some, which is phenomenal. But one of the downsides of that is, measurement happens based on the third party that built it or not, or what plugins are available or not. But now the cool part about that is everybody has the same problem. And it's pretty phenomenal because this is the future and we're right at the beginning of it in so many ways.
How do you think businesses are taking advantage of this, or can take advantage? What's the best kind of return investment they can do?
Jason,
go ahead, Jared.
So I mean, from my standpoint, there's two ways businesses can lean into. I mean, there's probably 2 to 3, right? Like they can create their own, but I'd be hesitant if your purpose is demand gen and you don't have a strategy like to make it feel organic, because people are going to feel that. So then there's leaning into others organically, and then there's leaning into others with a paid relationship with the community. So leaning into others organically is a no-brainer, but not just get your head of demand gen and because you want to search for stuff, not just get your sales development team in because you want to mine for opportunities. Again, that's approaching community in a very pipeline generating or pipeline thinking way, which, hey, it's out there. But to really get the advantage is to show up and to lean in and ask the question. Hey, I need help developing more pipeline. If that's what you need help with, and then watching the answers come in and how folks open up, how they share, how you build your network, and how you learn, you'll end up netting out in your learnings much more pipeline than if you just come in trying to sell or subtly trying to sell. And then doing that is important, I think, for all companies. And then if you want to go and lean in and have some sort of paid sponsorship or media relationship with communities layered on top of that, you're going to hit better results. Because I mean, think about this logically on social, right? Like, and let's talk like return on ad spend. People with great organic presences tend to have better return on ad spend on their ads. And when I say tend, I'm sure it's probably as close to 100% the case as possible. And Jason can attest. Well, in community, people that are organically active in the community and they decide to then sponsor, guess what? They're probably going to have better return on their investment, especially if it's done organically. So I wanted to throw that out there. But I'm a strong advocate of folks leaning into community. Strong advocate of companies building customer communities. I think that's pretty organic. You've already sold them, or sure, you could increase NRR and things like that, but that might not be your first purpose in creating that. It's probably a retention thing. It's probably to activate or increase engagement in the product and stuff like that. But on the demand gen side, you have to honestly be honest with yourself that you're creating something that the space needs, and not just something for demand gen. Because if you're going to do that, just have a weekly webinar instead. Like, that's a little more honest, it's a little more, and or a podcast, and do those types of things. To create an actual community, there needs to be a feeling of safety in the community, that you're not going to be you're not there just to be sold to, and there needs to be a level of comfort to be yourself.
And so you guys as a business then for RevGenius, because obviously, you guys need to make money as well. How do you kind of blur that line between creating that community, fostering the organic conversations, but being able to monetize as well? I imagine that's probably a difficult line to find.
It is a tension that I think is always going to be there in this type of a motion that you're going to have within that. But I mean, it's honestly a tension that you have within demand gen, period. If you're trying to leverage, value add content to then build a funnel and stuff like that, if you try and go too quickly from value add to a sales pitch, like, it's not going to work. Or if you try and disguise, what's basically a sales pitch as value add, it's not going to work. I mean, it's the same story in community. Like, you need to come in, you need to create true value, whether that's through the content, through engagement within the community, whatever. You need to come in with authenticity, and with the goal and the priority being, I'm going to create value, and then the rest is going to sort of flow from it. And, having come from the space, I mean, it's actually how I met Jared to begin with, and knowing demand gen sort of in and out. It's one of the biggest things that I'm trying to, work with partners on, is where, we just launched our new perspectives for 2023, and trying to get them away from the mindset of like, hey, we're going to come and we're going to pay X amount, and we're going to run 2 webinars, and we're going to generate, 150 leads, from each webinar, and we're going to go feed those to our sales team, and that's going to turn into pipeline and close deals. I'm trying to get people away from that mindset. Like, instead, let's figure out, how do we stack content together in a full funnel fashion? So, we can take, some thought leadership stuff with LinkedIn Lives, kind of similar to what we're doing here. We can then, take a topical webinar around value add. We can take that and then turn it into written content. We can use it, as, little teaser pieces and stuff like that. And then we can extend that into like in-person events and things. And then one of the pieces that I'm really, really excited about, that we're going to start opening up now-ish, is creating, channels within Slack around the events, so that we can get people into that ahead of time, so that those people that are interested enough that they've registered, or maybe they're interested, but they're not, sure enough to go register yet, that we can have conversations leading into the event that are happening organically, where people are getting value out of, talking with each other, an opportunity for the sponsor to be able to chime in and be able to give some professional direction and thought leadership within that. You've then got a better place that's more conducive to conversation during the webinar, during the event, so that you can actually have that there. And then you got a place to engage after the fact within it. And so it takes, what was just a very, ephemeral event where you're going to have people there, and it's very much just a watching of or observing type format, and turning it into an actual more interactive, engaging, community-led type event. And so it's that type of stuff we're trying to bring into the mix, going into next year, and trying to increase the value that the partners are bringing and delivering to it. And as a result, the value they're going to be able to pull out of these engagements.
To the original point that Jason just addressed, every time I hear, and I've heard this multiple times, okay, I've heard this more than the opposite. How do you make money? When I hear that, I smile, because that means we're doing something right. When people don't know how we're making money and it's organic, it's kind of cool.
That is awesome. Yeah, and it goes back to that North Star metric of weekly active community members. So, that's going to tell us really quickly if we're going off the reservation as far as prioritizing revenue or the interest of partners over the community, because that's always going to be a very short-term solution to any sort of a problem. Very quickly we'll wind up with a community that's not active, that's not engaged. No partner's then going to want to come and spend time, resources to go and engage with that community, and everything just sort of falls apart. And so, we're very fortunate to have such a clear North Star metric to keep us aligned, and from going into, any of those sort of distractions or areas that you may, very easily get sucked into over kind of short-term myopic focus on whatever the thing is at hand, which can blow up in your face if you don't stay on top of that and help course correct off of that. And so, it's where having those guiding North Stars becomes so important.
Well, guys, thank you. I know we went a little bit over here, but yeah, truly appreciate it. I learned a ton, and it was awesome just connecting with you guys and chatting and learning about RevGenius and your paths, and hopefully everyone else can learn from that as well. So yeah, I appreciate it.
It's been great.
Thank you for having us. This has been wonderful.